Hello and welcome to my Pokemon Journeys episode 114, a fire training battle, Ash vs Pool review. So coming off your load of excitement and Project New hype, we're back with Ash training for Masters 8, and he's really not sure how to get fired up even more for the tournament than he already is. Fortunately, Professor Oak gives him a call and asks him to come back to his lab, as his Pokemon want to see him. So immediately we've got a super exciting premise, haven't we? And trust me, they use it to their full effect. Back in Pallet Town, Professor Oak congratulates Go on his Project New entry, which Gary had informed Oak of. It's a little moment that doesn't take away from Ash's focus episode, but it's just a really nice full circle moment, as this is where Go's journey with Project Mew truly began. But it's interrupted as Ash's Pokemon all come running in, which is great. You get to see a lot more than last time in this episode 68. The highlights for me really are coming from his Pokemon Advanced Pokemon, particularly Swellow, but Sceptile is great too. And Pikachu's little moment on Charizard is adorable. Gible and Palpitoad take a liking to Go too. And since Ash's Pokemon weren't the focus last time, Ash sends out his Journeys team to meet his old Pokemon, and a huge celebration is for them getting into Masters 8. As the display is put on, Ash's Journey team interact with it, and the Pokemon and Gengar in particular takes an interest in the fire types, and touches Infinite, which fills him with fire energy and he gets launched off. So before I get any more into this, I want to make this clear now. I love how this is really at its core a Gengar focused episode. This episode has a lot going on as it's bringing Ash's Pokemon back, which he has a lot of, and the reintroduction to one of Ash's greatest rivals with Pool. Gengar takes a role that really binds everything together. So Gengar crashes into some trees and is hit by a Thunderbolt from an Electivire, and that's when Pool walks out from behind a tree as Ash and Go arrive at Crash Site. This is such a Pool classic, dude, just showing up in bushes of trees. It's such a funny way to reintroduce him after all these years. Ash does go to help Gengar up, but Gengar's carrying residual heat. Pool tries him to try and understand Gengar's condition, which leads to Ash giving Go a rundown about who Pool is. The fire types, other than Torkoal, arrive with Professor Oak, who reveals that this was actually a surprise. Pool showed up the other day out of the blue, so Pool says that Oak is a leading researcher on Pokemon, and so wanting to learn from Oak isn't too strange. Of course, with the fire types, Infinite is there. As Gengar runs off with the fire types to go train, Infinite stays behind. It's great to see Pool tell Ash that he should leave Gengar's training to his Pokemon. After all, Ash's Pokemon are experienced and reliable, and it's Pool that also prompts Infinite to go join the others. I think you can definitely feel some tension from the two reuniting after how their story went in Diamond and Pearl, but they follow up with Infinite picking up Oak and taking it along to go overlook the training, which is pretty funny. So Go's giving a story about what happened as he was confused why Infinite listened to Pool, which just has some gorgeous flashbacks. It'll become very apparent that Pool isn't the same guy he was in Sinnoh, and a wonderful way to display that is when Grookey looks interested in Electivire, and Pool asks it to go play with Grookey and Pikachu. It's not really something you would have expected from Pool, at all, but he's had a chance to really mellow out and become the peaceful self that Pyramid King Brandon wanted him to be. Gengar is training with fire types, Infinite particularly, and his fist ignites. They teach him to harness firepower. We then get a sequence of other Pokemon helping to train the Journeys theme, like Sceptile and Bulbasaur help Surfetch, Weasel and Hawlucha help Lucario, Swellow helps Dragonite, and that's not listing all Pokemon helping of course, but it shows that they're getting stronger here at Oak's lab. As Electivire plays, Ash and Pool sit down and talk. Pool didn't really enter World Championships because he wasn't really one for festivities. Now, Line does feel a bit weird considering he's taken part in the Kanto, Johto, Hoenn and Sinnoh leagues, not to mention the other types of tournaments like the Poker Ringer or the Tag Battle tournament. So why is he saying this? I feel like now that he's mellowed out, he's not looking for strength at any cost anymore. Maybe he forced himself into those scenarios before in order to grow and get strong. It also explains why we won't see him in the Masters 8, because he certainly feels more than worthy to have entered it. Ash challenges him to a battle since they won't get a chance there, and that's when Pool implements the rules that mirror their first ever battle, 3v3 with no switching. He also requests Ash to only use Pokemon he'll use in the Masters tournament. Back with the fire types, Gengar's firepower is fully harnessed, and Gengar pulls out a Will-O-Wisp. Ash startles it and he accidentally throws it at Ash, but Infinite defends Ash. Happily, Gengar flies over to Ash and gives him a big hug, and come on man, you can't tell me why Ash holds Gengar isn't adorable. Oak credits this to Infinite and the fire types, which Ash thanks them all for. While it's thanks to everyone's efforts, a special bond is placed on Gengar and Infinite, which is very reminiscent of how Lucario and Greninja were, which is nice, you know. We have two Pokemon that will use gimmicks other than Pikachu and Masters 8, so giving them a chance to meet and grow from Ash's previous aces is really wholesome. But time for a big match. Ash's Pokemon are all gathered. Out comes Lucario and Pool's new Pokemon Gyarados. The battle is absolutely stunning to watch. The animation by Misaki Owain here is truly marvellous. So Lucario uses Double Team to throw Gyarados and it eventually gets behind it as it needs to recharge after a Hyper Beam. As Ash commands an Aura Sphere, Gyarados grasps Lucario in its tail and is able to attack with Ice Fang. This is a great callback to two different things. So initially when Lucario got gripped by Gyarados, I immediately thought that's from the Sinnoh League. Pool's Drapion and Electivire were absolutely menaces for being able to grind their opponent to a halt using their tails to grab them. Pool brings it back here as a great defensive maneuver as Gyarados recharges. But I also noticed that Pool does the exact same thing that Lance did to Leon's Charizard, which is coiling around them and hitting them again and again with Ice Fang. If that doesn't show that Pool hasn't studied who Ash will be going up against, I don't know what will. But there Leon got Charizard's break up with Fire Spin. Here Lucario just activates his aura and fires off a Steel Beam. Lucario starts charging up. Ash says, "Is that?" And Poole talks kinda quietly and tells Lucario to come on. Lucario's learned Bullet Punch and rushes in. Gyarados charges Hyper Beam, but Lucario's able to take out Gyarados. And Lucario's training partners cheer him on as he's taking the win. Another way to show just how much Poole has grown is that when he recalls Gyarados, he tells it that it did well. I know it's a small thing, right, but Poole wouldn't have done that for most of Diamond and Pearl. I think he did start doing that in the league, but it's nice to know that's consistent. He continues to grow on his own as the anime's moved on. Next up is Dragonite vs Garchomp. Man, that's just awesome. I don't know, man. Ash and Poole just using their home region pseudos just feels so right. More so than if Dragonite went up against any other Garchomp, really. So these two parallel each other so perfectly that having the pinnacle of non-legendary power on their teams is amazing. They make an impression too as they hit each other with Dragon Claw and crash back without missing a beat. Garchomp throws off the coolest damn Stonage I've ever seen, and hits Dragonite cleanly. Poole follows up with Draco Meteor, and Ash gets Dragonite to charge one up. He's got a strategy where Dragonite will charge in with a Draco Meteor instead of launching it up. Honestly, I thought that this was Scale Shot when we first saw this battle in a preview, but unfortunately Dragonite is the only Pokemon entering this battle who doesn't get a new move this episode. Garchomp defends with Dragon Claw and knocks out Dragonite. So sadly Dragonite's losses continues as the series ramps up, but it didn't really feel like a bad loss, so it doesn't feel bad to be upset, you know? I also think it's quite genuine when Poole called the strategy tacky, but not in a mean way or anything. It didn't take much for Poole to overcome it, so what's the difference between it coming towards him or going up in the air? It's kind of played as a joke anyway since Ash calls it cool, but being no nonsense, Poole just sends out his Metagross, so Ash sends out Gengar. Go does take note of Poole's Pokemon that he sent out. Gyarados, Garchomp and Metagross. The fire types are hype though to see Gengar and how it will put in the work. So Poole leads with agility and Gengar can't hit it with a Shadow Ball. Gengar is tossed aside by a Psychic and that's when Poole tries to strike a nerve. Can Ash really call himself a member of a Masters 8? And we cut to Infinite watching on as Gengar gets up. And Poole adds that he's struggling against Poole when he can't win against the Masters 8. It's really interesting what he's saying in this battle. Even putting aside the fact that Infinite was really Gengar's teacher here, Gengar and Infinite both have a very similar past. There's not much time to dwell on it though as Metagross rushes in with Meteor Mash and Infinite cheers on Gengar to get back up. Ash commands Will-O-Wisp. The power that was taught by Ash's fire types with one last cheer. Gengar throws the attack and burns Metagross. Out comes another Meteor Mash which Gengar is able to deflect and he finishes off Metagross with a strong Shadow Ball. Gengar gets a lovely hug from Charizard and Infinite first. These are all Pokemon that are abandoned, so seeing them all so strong and working together and supporting each other is just fantastic. And the rest of the fire types join in too. Actually damn, I guess Pignite should have been on the initial hug, but oh well. As Metagross returns, Go asks Poole about his Pokemon being the aces of a Masters 8. Lance, Cynthia and Stevens. It's no coincidence of course, but Poole doesn't want to admit it. Something else I really love is that those three other champions of the 4 regions that Ash and Poole had both travelled by the time they met. It just really brings everything together for me. I love that detail so much. So Poole does smile when Go points it out, but he thanks Oak for everything and Oak says he can come back whenever. Poole will work via leave with Ash asking to battle again one day. That's when Oak reveals that Poole is asked to become a gym leader. That's why he came to Oak to learn more about Pokemon. Since Poole's gone, I want to talk about his goal for him. Initially I was thinking, man, I really want Poole to become a Frontier Brain since his goal was so entwined with surpassing his brother Reggie with beating Brandon, but I don't really get reference to either of them this episode. But really thinking about it, being a gym leader for Poole would be fantastic. It's absolutely perfect for him, factoring in all his growth and development from Diamond and Pearl. Gives him a chance to guide and help trainers grow. Something he wouldn't have done if it weren't for all mature adults in his life like Cynthia, Brandon and Reggie, and then Ash who challenged his worldview and came out on top, changing the course of Poole's life. Now he has a chance to be a positive influence and really help trainers flourish if he becomes a gym leader. And he absolutely should be. In fact, as far as we know, the Viridian Gym doesn't have a leader, so put him there in order to reference Blue Throne Games, a rival turned into a teacher, reference the fact that he's based off Silver, Giovanni, the old Viridian Gym leader's son. Ash is all fired up and is ready to run off with Go to the Masters Tournament, but Delia has arrived at the lab and invites him and Go to stay at home before the big night, and with the last group photo of a Pokemon, we're ready for the Masters 8. Wow. Journeys has been on fire lately, huh? Especially with his fire training. As mentioned, what an amazing choice to really make this a Gengar-focused episode. That choice tied Poole's return to Return of Ash's old Pokemon together so fantastically. I love Gengar, I love rooting for the guy, so having him learn from a Pokemon with such an emotional story of Infinite, putting up against a person who caused a lot of the pain Infinite went through, and really having him get a great new move before Masters 8 is awesome. In general, I think showing Ash's Journeys team training with his old Pokemon is a really wonderful bit of preparation before the tournament. It's basically everything you can want from Return to Oak's lab, since Ash's whole team really got something out of it. Of course with Gengar being the main focus and really building a meaningful bond with Infinite, which is honestly kind of comparable to Lucario and Greninja, but I honestly preferred Gengar and Infinite here. Speaking of Lucario though, it does get a new move as well with Bullet Punch, which is pretty neat and I hope that Double Team got replaced. I also think it's quite cool that Poole wanted Lucario to get new move. Pretty great to see that he was like really rooting for that. We don't know if Dragonite, Surfetch, or Dracovish got a new move, but if they don't, I think that's alright. But wow man, Paul's usage was an absolute treat. Being such a fan of his Arc and Diamond and Pearl, there's a little bit of worry with how they'd handle him. Like, why isn't he battling in World Championships? Will he revert to his old iconic personality? Stuff like that. But luckily my concerns weren't for nothing as he was masterfully handled. He's very much a better version of himself. He was a lot more peaceful and he's not shouldering any burdens as he was before. Wanting to surprise Ash alongside Oak and preparing him for 3 Champions Aces is amazing. Paul is evidently studying what Ash will be going up against as he copies the strategy from Lance. His Garchomp uses at least 2 moves that Cynthia's Garchomp has, as Metagross's agility to mimic the speed of Steven's Mega Metagross. It also uses 2 moves that Steven's Metagross used in X and Y. It's really crazy to see because it's not going to become easy to train those 3 Pokemon in specific ways, but he does it in a way to support his old rival. It's just fantastic. It also makes sense too when Oak reveals what Paul's new goal is, to become a gym leader. And man, I think that's an absolutely stunning direction for him. It keeps him in a battle-oriented role, but letting him guide and help new trainers as he was helped and guided by others is phenomenal. I truly hope we get to see progress on his goal for him, much like how we've seen Gary make strides to his goal of becoming a researcher. I also really love the way this episode ends. I think having Ash spend one more night in Pallet Town before he stands on the world stage is a really great idea. You don't see him at home, but ending with a picture of Ash with his Pokemon at the lab was lovely. I do think that I would like to see the Alola episodes right before the Masters 8, as he'll be representing that region. Having a goodbye from Ash's Pokemon, Professor Oak, Paul, and finally Delia is something that makes me absolutely happy that we got this before the tournament. So I love this episode. What about you? Thank you for watching.